Hello and welcome to NewsNight, where we speak to major league players in Nigeria's democracy and the issues generated from its drive for growth and development. I am Ladi Akeredoluale. Thanks for joining us. My guest on today's edition of the program says he believes that the rotation principle governing Nigeria's politics means that the next president of the country should come from the South. My guest also says whichever group or region that will be must speak to the other groups and achieve a consensus. NewsNight talks to elder statesman Alhaji Tanko Yakasai. Alhaji Yakasai, thank you for your time. Welcome to the program.
You're welcome.
I want to begin from politics this time. The last time I spoke to you about 2 years ago, we talked about security before we talked about politics. Security is still an issue today, but I want to start from the politics because that seems to be what a lot of people are talking about. The National Assembly has been quite busy in the run-up to 2023. They've made some amendments to the Electoral Act. But the headline ones were the ones that talked about electronic voting and electronic transmission of results. They went one way, particularly the Senate, and then they reversed themselves subsequently. Do you believe, as some people say or have said, that perhaps this is because they have seen the advantage to which they can put this new system, which is why they reversed themselves?
Well, if somebody has taken a position and for one reason or another subsequently change his position, there must be consideration that led him to change that position. What it is, I don't know. But certainly some of them brought that to their attention or the attention of their colleagues of something which made them to convince their colleagues to change, because there are a large number of people. If you put the two houses together, over 500. To convince them, it must be an argument that is easy to sell. So what I know for sure is that the second position is an afterthought. The original position was their real position, but the second one is an afterthought.
A lot of those who had the initial position that you mentioned talked about, and even when the NCC was brought to the National Assembly to talk about the feasibility of this, large parts of the North are said to be off-grid, off-network. It's difficult to get reliable network service in many parts, outside the cities particularly. And that was the fear of quite a number of the northern representatives, both in the Senate and in the House, that if they approved this and they said this was the method of operation, that might put some of their citizens in at a disadvantage. Do you
Which is a plausible argument, in my opinion, because it's about people, election. If large number of people will be excluded, it's not complete. So it's a good idea if it is this that drive their attention to change the position. And I think if it is, then it's for the national interest.
Let me come to the nitty-gritty of the politics that is being played now. You're one of the most prominent northern elders. And it is said that when things like this happen or are happening, when you have national events such as what is coming up in 2023, there are meetings between you and your colleagues in the North, and to decide as a group, as a bloc, what is the position, what you're going to do. But it looks as if this time is not as straightforward as it used to be in the past. There are a bit of complications in the matter. A northern president is just ending his tenure, or will be ending his tenure then, after 8 years. And there's the principle of rotation and the principle of zoning. Those two are now part of our politics. But they are complicating matters now, it would appear, because so many people have differing positions. What do you think the position of the North will be based on?
Well, a number of Northerners that I was privileged to talk to in a conversation about next election, they seem to believe that it is our responsibility that we got Buhari into power this time around. And therefore, we must be prepared to accept the consequences of our action. And therefore, to keep this country, one is of paramount importance. And therefore, we can't be ruling all the time. And therefore, they believe that whether we like it or not, this is the time to give our compatriots from the South support to produce the next president for this country. And I'm one of them.
There's a difference between being the king and being a kingmaker. But even among kingmakers, there are different objectives. I remember being told that if, as you say, it is time for the South to have its turn at the presidency, that is not to say the North will have no say or will play no part in who is to be produced by the South. One of your colleagues has told me already that if they bring someone from any region in the South who we don't think is going to protect our interests, we will say no.
Well, politics is about interest, no doubt about it. Whoever you are going to support, you have at the back of your mind your interest. And therefore his position to your interest will matter, will come into focus in your consideration. So I'm not in a position to doubt the position you mentioned by somebody, but I think by and large the position is that next time should be a Southern president or a president from the South by large number of, influential people in the North.
If that is the case, in 1998-99, when the military was handing over to the current democratic civilian government, the northern position was, as you just enumerated again, that, okay, for stability purposes, for recompensation purposes, the South, and not just the South, the Southwest should be allowed to produce the president. And this was followed through to the end. The election essentially was between two Southwest candidates. But the North still had a hand in choosing the person who eventually became the president because the North said they could trust General Obasanjo based on his antecedents. So even though he wasn't as popular in the Southwest, because of the numbers that the North could muster, he emerged president. Do you foresee that kind of situation now, even if it is someone from the Southeast?
You don't rule out possibilities because you have no way of knowing what will happen at the time, at the critical moment. But in my opinion, I think what happened during Obasanjo can also happen now, depending certainly of the person and from where he's coming. So I think that is possible. And the issue of zoning and rotation is paramount now in our political system, although it's not in our constitution. It's always taking into consideration, one, the matter of who should be the president of Nigeria comes to be discussed. So there are a substantial number of people who think that it is the right time that the Southerner should be the president for Nigeria. There are so many reasons.
It's going to be a bit complicated because, again, as I've been told, in 2010, when the late Umaru Musa Yar'Adua died, and there were consultations about the succession of Dr. Goodluck Jonathan. The records have it that the North supported Dr. Jonathan for stability to take the position at that time. Even though there were some people within the North who wanted President Jonathan to resign, even as vice president, so that someone else who was from the North could take up the mantle of power. But at the end, what happened, happened. And it was also reported that that was based on the agreement that he would serve just one term. Of course, that became contentious. And then in 2014, even people like yourself said, well, you're trying to break the gentleman's agreement here. And therefore, you switched support away from him. But this time, it's not so clear-cut, is it? Because you have candidates from the North who still want to contest even in 2023. Just as you say, you know, it should come from the South. So the Northern elders are going to have a tough task, aren't they?
Well, we will. But I think majority of them are of the opinion that it is time that the next president should come from the South. The elders I'm talking of, and also people in authority. But you can't rule out possibility of having some people to disagree with them. This is a country, I mean, a region of 54, 55% of the total population of Nigeria. They can't all think alike. But certainly, I think majority in the North are in support of a presidential candidate and a president from the South.
The position, it appears now, is that if it is to come from the South, the zone in the South that hasn't had the opportunity to be president under the current system is the Southeast.
Yes.
And there's been a lot of clamor
Yes.
that the next president should come from there.
Yes.
Do you think that is a viable idea, given everything that you know about the political situation?
Well, you know, presidential zoning and rotation on presidential candidate is based on North-South dichotomy. It's not based on 6 geopolitical zones. It is based on North-South dichotomy. As long as the person is from the South, regardless of from which of the geopolitical zone he comes, these people who believe that somebody from the South should be the president will still stick to their gun.
Do you think that they should be having conversations with those from the Southeast now, like they did with those from the Southwest in 1998, which produced President Obasanjo? Is that kind of conversation going on as we speak?
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge.
Would you think that that kind of conversation should be going on?
Well, the what do they say? The card is on the Southeastern people's desk, if you like. It's up to them to try to reach out. I'm a strong supporter of a president from the South after Buhari, and also if he can come from the Southeast, I have no problem. I will even support it. My quarrel is that this is not something that you just stay at home and think that people will come to your house and dash it to you. You have to show interest. You have to be serious. You have to try to convince people that you are really up to the task. This is what, in my opinion, is missing from the Southeast. There is that desire on their part, but they are not exerting their position to manifest that desire to convince people that, look, they are really serious about it. I hope by making this statement, they will be awakened to their responsibilities.
Do you think, as some of the other people in the North some of them have said, that what should be a straightforward political negotiation is being complicated by the agitations in the Southeast, some calling that the Southeast should go its own way, the issue with Nnamdi Kanu and IPOB, and some groups in the North saying, look, the federal government should actually conduct a referendum for them. And if at the end of the day, then so be it. Is that conversation poisoning the atmosphere of this kind of conversation you're talking about?
There is this uncertainty in Nigeria about the position of the Southeast, because it is surprising to many people, including people like me. You know, during the First Republic, I was in NEPU, in alliance with the NCNC. And also, during the Second Republic, I was in NPN, and closer to Ekemi, Alice Ekemi, there's doubts, because this Nnamdi Kanu, who ordinarily, to me, will not be a good candidate for the governorship of any of the southeastern states, is now claiming the attention and support of prominent people in the Southeast. Is making people to doubt if the Southeast is really ready to produce a credible candidate that will have Nigeria as a whole in his heart of hearts. That doubt is there, no doubt about it.
Let me bring you back to the North and the fact that the historical records show that the North has been or has held power for most of Nigeria's independence. Not leaders from the North, both in the military and the civilian leaders, have held power. But that paradoxically, many of the statistics show that the North is still lacking in many things. Infrastructure, out-of-school children, the Almajiri phenomenon, amongst others. Of course, newer things have joined, banditry, cattle rustling, and all of that. What do you think is responsible for that? Is there something responsible for that, you know, we're in charge, but at home?
Most of the people who came to power, even though from the North, were there without a pro-North agenda. They are there with their pro-themselves agenda. They pursued agenda that was entirely personal to them. This is the reason why, in the end, the North has very little to show for their being in power. Today, this is the reason why you have a lot of Almajiris and so on. Even in the political parties, you don't see a manifesto produced by a political party with a program that will address these obvious shortcomings in Nigerian situation, the Almajiris, the poverty, lack of education, and so on. No program. And this is the reason why I belong to a group which felt that next time it is the program of a candidate that should attract our votes. What he has for us as a part of this country, if he becomes a president, what is he going to do to address our problems? Because they exist. And they are national problems. Lack of education, lack of job, and so on. So I think this time around, people will begin to insist that whoever is coming to contest for the presidency of Nigeria will need to produce his own program, not northern program, but a national program that will address problems in the north that are known to everybody. Not to take the northern support for granted. What are they going to do? What is he going to do to address the problems in the north as part of his national program?
As you say that, some people wonder, what then are the governors doing who are from the north? They are in charge of jurisdictions in the north. Do you think at that level, I mean, not the president now, but at the level of the governors, they too are having the same difficulty? They are northerners, they are governing parts of the north, but they don't have a northern agenda. They don't have a development agenda.
There's no doubt about that. I don't think anybody will doubt you or will argue with you on this. Go to every state and find out the thinking of the people. They have complained with their governors because the governors are not addressing their problem. We have this problem of unemployment in the north. It's easy for the governors to produce a program. The money they are spending can be utilized to address some of these problems. Create employment opportunities, create programs to educate majority of the people, create how to integrate the Almajiris into the society. The issue of Almajiri has a long history. It came with the arrival of Usman Dan Fodio into the scene, and he was a religious leader, so he sold the idea of Islamic education, and at that time it was very relevant. And this is the reason why you have Almajiris, because people at that time voluntarily send their children to Islamic schools so that they can get Islamic education. There was no Western education to compete with Islamic education at that time. Now is a different situation. So people who rule in the state will need to produce programs for their respective states that will address the issues that are bedeviling the people of their states. I think next election we'll see something like an attempt to rectify this shortcoming, because people in the state will begin to ask their indigenes who are coming as candidates, what do you have in your mind for us to address our problem?
Now, I've raised that because, of course, even the North claims to be marginalized as well in the scheme of things, that they don't get what they ought to get. And then that brings me to the general issue of marginalization. Which school of thought do you belong to, Alhaji Yakasai? Is it the one that says everybody can claim to be marginalized? Or really that there are some parts of Nigeria that have a cogent argument to say that they are being marginalized or that they have been marginalized? There
is marginalization intentionally there is also a marginalization that is not done intentionally. Marginalization in the North is not done intentionally by people who govern the North. It is the way they came to power. A lot of them came to power because of the money they can afford to dish out. And unfortunately, in Nigeria today, the political system is such that political parties don't even have programs. Look at the PDP, APC now. You can't say this is the program they have for Nigeria or for regions. So, but like I said before, next time people will begin to ask questions, what do you have for us? Because we voted for people before. Our situation did not change for the better. This question, because people are becoming there are more educated people now in the North, in spite of our backwardness, than they were before. And also they interact with the uneducated ones among them. And this question of not seeing something done for us does not require an education. If people live in the society and they know when they don't have drinking water, they know. When the agriculture is not cared for, they know. So it's an easy thing now for people to know. Before, no. But now, people will begin to ask, people who are contesting election, what do you have for us? And after some time, if they didn't deliver, they will come out and cry. I pray that all of us, you and me, will stay to the next election, and you will see this playing out at that time.
Well, one of the things the North seems to have gotten, at least from President Buhari, if not the governors, is that, because I remember that the last time I spoke to you, you talked about oil, Nigeria's oil, and who could be considered an oil-producing state and who could be, and all of that. We had that discussion. But now, under the revised Petroleum Industry Act and the readjustments to the NNPC and so on, a large chunk of funds is now being voted for oil exploration in the North. And if it turns out, as some are suspecting, that the North has abundance of oil reserves, oil is not going anywhere anytime soon, so could that be a windfall? Could that also alter what we have talked about now for the better if the North also produces oil now? Could that make the North less hostile, for example, to the arguments about derivation and all that?
Well, the idea about funding for exploration and so on, if I'm wrong, if I'm not wrong, did not emanate from the bill submitted by the president. It came up from the members of the National Assembly. And this is the kind of thing that I'm saying, that people now have begun to ask, particularly here in the North, what do we get out of all these things? Like you mentioned from the beginning, we rule this country more than the rest of the country in terms of time. Now, what did our position as rulers turn out to be in terms of advantage to the North? These questions are being asked, and there will be more, they'll ask more in the future. The issue of oil. In the future, I know that more money will be devoted for the oil exploration in northern Nigeria. And also, I think people who are coming to vie for the position of presidential leadership will also be made either directly by this bill or somehow by other circumstances to consider as part of their program that the exploration of oil in northern Nigeria, abundant oil deposit that we have, as a means of boosting the economy of the North and the country as a whole, and also creating opportunity for employment and development in the North and in the country as a whole.
Let me bring you to the other thing I mentioned at the beginning that I said was a problem, security.
Yes.
And again, it appears as if the North has borne a bigger brunt of insecurity than the rest of the country.
Yes.
There is the Boko Haram insurgency in the Northeast, and then there are other things happening in the North Central and in the Northwest. Banditry, cattle rustling, kidnapping, and all of that. Do you think we're addressing the problem, or we're simply addressing the symptoms in what has happened so far?
Well, let me first of all say that the problem of insurgency started from the north, well, from the south. Niger Delta, what do they call themselves?
Niger Delta Avengers.
Avengers and the rest of them.
Movement for
And
the emancipation of the Niger Delta.
And also, after the Civil War, the abandonment of illegal arms was from the south. It was later on that it extended to the north. North, because of two reasons, has now taken the challenge, so to say. Two reasons of large population, poverty, and unemployment. So they are now really agitating. This is the reason why you are having more banditry in the north, because these people are unemployed. You don't get people who are gainfully employed involved in banditry. You don't, even in the north or in the south. So I believe that those in power in the future will begin to think on how to address these issues, because unless they are addressed, the problem will continue to persist. We have the population are unemployed, uneducated, and they need to be employed, they need to be educated. There will be people in power in the future who will try to address the root cause of the problem and provide education, provide employment opportunity, and so on. We have large land, arable land, that can be cultivated. We have so many dams that are laying waste. There is opportunity for engaging in 3 crops agriculture per year. 1 from the rainwater and 2 from the irrigation through the dams. So the question of having leaders and political parties that will address the problem of unemployment in the country as a whole. This is an opportunity, one of the best opportunities that we have that can be utilized to minimize, to mitigate the large number of unemployment in Nigeria or in the north in particular, and also create job opportunities.
One of the ideas that's been floated is that, like it happened with the Niger Delta militants, whom you mentioned earlier in the interview, that the ones who are prepared to surrender should be given the opportunity to surrender. They should be granted amnesty. They should be absorbed into schools for those who are still of school age, and for those who are not of school age, they should be given gainful employment. Do you subscribe to this? One of its most loud opponents is, loud proponents is Sheikh Gumi.
Yes.
Do you agree with him?
Well, it's not a question of whether I agree with him or not. It's a question of what happened to the Niger Delta Avengers and the rest of them. They are not there. You don't hear of them anymore because of the discussion initiated by the government. I'm sorry, I don't like to appear unnecessarily critical of the present regime. But this is the reason why I was not happy with the regime at the beginning till today. Now they are trying to make up. But if you have a program before you come to power, particularly like in the case of our present president, who contested election 3 times and failed, and then succeeded on the fourth occasion, I believe he should have all these things on the tip of his hand, they say, finger. So insecurity in Nigeria now is all over the country. And it's too late now for Buhari administration to initiate a new program. They are trying to address to the best of their ability, but certainly they don't have time. When I have years is the time that remains for them. And such a program needs time. It's not something that you can think overnight. Particularly what is paining me is that we had, an example before. Yar'Adua, whether it was himself or his advisors, told him to address the issue of insecurity. And he decided to do it, and he did it successfully. The whole thing vanished. That is insecurity in the terms of the one met by Yar'Adua. He negotiated with them, and they told him what they wanted, and he agreed to do it. And he started doing it, and they were convinced that he was serious. They gave up. Some of the so-called bandits are doing for a reason. Without discussing with them, you can't know what is their problem. You can't do it on speculation. So I think it will be a good idea, but unfortunately, the present administration have very little time, but they can initiate something, and it will be a lesson for the future administration to regard the issue of insecurity as a prime program of its agenda, how to address it. And thank God that we have an example to go by, the Yar'Adua initiative. We can take that one, correct it, or adjust it to suit the present circumstances, and also address the problem. I am sure if we do that, there will be some success recorded.
The insurgency and indeed the herders-farmers clashes brought to light what some have called the ethnic dynamics of the North, in the sense that most people who have not been to the North, who only hear about it, think of the North as one group of people. But when the issue of Fulani came up, and then there were those who said, yes, those are Fulanis, we're Kanuris, we're Hausas, and so and we were like, are you all from the north? Are you all in the north? And yes, it proved to be an interesting discovery for many people.
Yes.
Do you think, like in the South, and I know you alluded to it earlier on when we were speaking, that you said there would always be disagreements from such a large group of people. There would always be disagreements. But somehow the North has managed to keep the level of open disagreement to a minimum, as opposed to the South. To what do you put that? To what do you think is responsible for that success in being able to, keep it the block?
No, we
together?
have a system of traditional leadership. That was the main driving force in dealing with the people. You have a hierarchy in the old native authority system, which was based on the emirship system, where you have the emir at the top, the district head, the village head, the hamlet head, and when the emir wanted something to happen, all he needs, for instance, Kano, I don't know the number of this now, but it used to be about 30-something districts. All the emir needed to do is to call the district heads, give them instruction. This is what you should tell people to do. They go back, each district head needed to do was to call village heads. And you call them and tell them, and they'll go and call hamlet heads. And they tell, within 48 hours, the message will be related to the people, to the grassroots, and they will begin to act on it. We don't have that system as it used to be, but we still have the remnant of it. We still have the Mengwa, who is the hamlet head. We still have a village head. We still have the district head. We still have the emirs. Although the powers of the emirs is very much reduced, but they are still very useful. They are still respected, and the district head and the village head and the hamlet head are also respected. So this is the secret behind, even in the areas where you don't have emir, you have chief, which are non-Muslim community. They operate on the same pattern. If you go to Plateau, you have the chief of Jos. Under him, there will be those category of leadership. And when you ask, as a governor, the chief of Jos, to tell his people or to instruct his people to do this is the same process that will follow. So both the Muslim areas or dominated areas, or majority areas, and non-Muslim majority areas, they have the same pattern of administration, of dealing with their people.
Raji Yakasai, one of your mates is Chief Edwin Clark. And he said to me, when last I spoke to him, he said, I've collected my boarding pass and I'm prepared to go at any time. And I say, are you confident that what you're leaving behind when it is time to go is reflective of the effort you have put in? I know his answer, but I ask you the same question.
Yes. Well, in the first place, he's my junior, age-wise by, I think, 1 or 2 years. And has been my friend for over 70 years.
Indeed.
So if we think alike, it's not something surprising. Nobody, not even a madman, will think at the age of 96 he has much time to stay. My hope is that at least I should clock 100 years. Thereafter, then I'll begin to ask God for the number of more years I will require. But certainly I know that I'm at the tail end of my life. And I'm grateful to God for the time He gave me and for the little contribution I'm able to do.
Alhaji Yakasai, thank you very much for your time.
I'm grateful. Thank you very much for your searching questions. I like this type of question because I'm encouraged. I'm made to try hard and work hard to produce a good answer so that people who listen to me will pick one or two things for the benefit, for their own benefit or for the benefit of the country. So I'm grateful also for your interview.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's today's episode of the program. Thanks for watching. Would like to know what you think of the issues raised in this conversation. Our social media handles are right there on your screen. You can also watch this and previous episodes of the program via our podcast. Please visit our website, channelstv.com/podcast to get started. I am Ladi Akeredoluale. Goodbye.